Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV, back with another Market Watch episode, but today we're changing things up a little bit and taking a look at some GOAT format cards. So believe it or not, I feel like GOAT format has gotten really popular over the last year or so, with people looking at it as an alternative, low-cost format that's really easy to pick up and play for fun. Or at least it was pretty cheap. With so many people looking at it now, we're actually seeing a ton of different cards that are climbing in price across the board. A lot of these cards only have older printings available because they aren't really relevant in today's format, so they can also be quite difficult to find. Now before we get started, I do want to give a shout out to two GOAT format channels that I'm really fond of personally. There is Jinzo and Tonic, which does some really interesting deck profiles and replays, and then Grinding GOAT format, which shows a ton of different replays on Dueling Book. Think DB Grinder but for GOAT format. Both of them are really interesting, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. I'll leave a link to their channels in the description down below. But yeah, let's jump right into today's episode. Alright, so to kick things off, let's take a look at Dikoichi the Battle Chanted Locomotive. So this card has a really simple effect, allowing you to draw a card when it's flipped face up. I think that a few years ago this card wasn't as popular of an option in GOAT format, and a lot of people looked at playing Magical Merchant instead. Now, however, we see a ton of people playing Dikoichi in decks like Chaos Turbo because it does allow you to draw and doesn't force you to dump those precious resources into the graveyard. It also has 1400 attack points instead of just the 200, so it's not as much of a liability after you flip it face up. So obviously we have the ultimate rare versions that are really expensive, over $100 with very few quantities on TCG Player, but even if you want to play some lower rarity versions, they are still quite a bit. For the Hobby League Ultras, you're looking at 25s, and for the Speed Duel Super Rares, you're looking at about 13. However, even for the common or rare versions, the lowest rarities, you're still looking at needing to pay $5 or more a piece, so anywhere from $15 to $20 for a playset. This is a lot for a card that has had like 5 lower rarity printings, including a starter deck version, but the last time that this card was printed outside of that Speed Duel Holo version was in Battle Pack Epic Dawn, which came out almost a decade ago in 2012. This card is one that's probably really easy to overlook when you are digging through bulk, so definitely something to keep an eye out for and set aside if you haven't already. Next up, let's take a look at Noblemen of Crossout, which is one of my favorite cards of the format. Super simple, you just destroy a sent monster and then remove it from play, but if it's a flip effect monster, both players banish all other copies of that card from their respective decks. It's really great for getting rid of annoying cards like Magician of Faith or Gravekeeper's Spy, or if you're in a really rough situation, you can combine it with Tsukuyomi to out something like Blackluster Soldier. Now obviously, it wouldn't be a great card in today's format, but in a much slower format where you can actually set monsters and not get OTK'd, this is an insane card. In fact, I think it was semi-limited in GOAT format. Anyways, this card does have a lot of really cool different rarities available. You have the Hobby League Ultras, which are the most expensive at around $35 a piece, the secret rare from the Duel City Speed Duel box at $18, Duelist League rares at around the $15 to $20 mark, and then the DT and super rare printings at anywhere from $5 to $10 each. Of course, if all you're looking for is a copy of the card to use where you don't really care about the rarity, there are a ton of different common printings available that you should be able to snag for $1 or $2. Personally, I think that the secret rare looks the nicest, but the DB1 supers also have a really nice old look to them. This card is essentially a staple in GOAT format, so if you're looking to bling out your deck, find a rarity that you think looks the nicest for yourself to play with, because as GOAT format gets more and more popular, these nicer, higher rarity versions are only going to continue to go up. So this is a card that is kind of unique. Delinquent Duo was banned back in October of 2005, and very fortunately for us, it has remained there on the ban list. For quite a while, it did seem like Delinquent Duo was just going to go up in price forever, because for a while there was only the super rare and ultra rare printings available, and the card looked like it was never going to come off the list, and they were each above the $20 mark. After that though, we did get an unexpected secret rare reprint in the Legendary Collection Kaiba a few years ago, which brought the price down into the single digits. However, with the resurgence of GOAT format recently, and given that Delinquent Duo still only has those few printings available, we've seen all of the prices shoot back up way past their original marks, where the DB1 supers are $70 lowest on TCG Player and then the ultra and secret rares are between the $20 to $25 range. It's very easy to see why this card is that expensive. It's part of that trinity with Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity, the three most powerful cards of the format, so it's literally played in every single GOAT deck without question. If you're wanting to play GOATs, you're gonna have to suck it up and pick up a copy of this card because it's just too powerful not to play. So this is another card that is still banned up until today. We have Tribe Infecting Virus. So even though Tribe isn't as insane as something like Pot of Greed, I feel like Tribe is a card that everyone ends up playing in their decks anyways. Its effect is really simple. You discard a card and call a type, and then all monsters on the field that are that type are destroyed. This card is really important because aside from set monsters, it basically gets rid of any problematic monster on your opponent's side of the field. It kills things like BLS, Chaos Sorcerer, Thousand Eyes Restrict, Spirit Reaper, Goat tokens. It can even destroy all of your opponent's monsters if they're all the same type or if you have multiple cards that you're okay with discarding. Now, unlike Delinquent Duo though, this card hasn't gotten any sort of recent reprint to cool down its price. There is only one holo version of this card from way back in Magician's Force, which is about $20 at the moment for a near mint copy. And then it has a Structure Deck Common and Dark Revelations 1 rare printing, either of which are going to cost you about $10 to $15. Now, in my opinion, this card is a staple in GOAT format, and if you're looking to play GOATs, I think it's something that you kind of have to play. At the same time though, I personally think that Tribe Infecting Virus could come off the ban list in the current format without any sort of problem, and if it did, it would almost certainly get a reprint in whatever the next upcoming reprint set is. Probably not something that you want to go out and invest in a ton of copies of, but I definitely think that it's reasonable for you to make sure that you own one copy at least for your own use if you're looking to play the format. Alright, so this is a pretty iconic and well-known one. We have Metamorphosis. So this is easily one of the cards that basically defines the entirety of GOAT format, allowing you to turn a Scapegoat token into Thousand Eyes Restrict, a really annoying boss monster to have to get rid of. There are other things that you can do with Metamorphosis. You can summon things like Dark Balter or Ryu Senshi or Last Warrior from Another Planet, but Thousand Eyes I think is the big one that most people are familiar with. This isn't played in every single strategy, but in the GOAT control deck that a lot of people view as being one of the standard decks of the format, it's usually played at either 2 or 3. Anyways, this card does just have actually 3 printings available. There's the Champion Pack Super Rare that's literally over like $1,500 on TCG Player right now. Basically impossible to find, and then aside from that, you're looking at either the Dark Revelations or Pharaonic Guardian commons. I feel like every time I see a copy of Metamorphosis, it's damaged. Like, I can never find a near mint common copy just because of how old they are, and they are a pain to find, which is probably why right now you're looking at needing to spend $10 for a single common copy of the card. I don't think that this card is ever really going to come off the ban list, so unless we see some sort of unexpected reprint at some point in the near future, we're all just going to be stuck playing with these damaged commons for a while. Since we're talking about Metamorphosis, let's also take a look at one of the most important monsters that you can summon with it, Dark Balter the Terrible. So obviously Thousand Eyes is the thing that you're probably bringing out most often, but Dark Balter is, in my opinion, the second most important monster in your extra deck. You can turn Parshath into this card, which can block your opponent from using cards like Pot of Greed or Graceful Charity to get back into the game. It's also able to negate the effects of monsters that it destroys. So it can't be destroyed by Night Assailant or Newdoria, it stops the effects of Mystic Tomato and Shining Angel, and if it kills Serpent, your opponent actually can't add it back to their hand anymore, unless they summon it back with Call or Prima, and then it gets sent to the graveyard another way once again. Now, this card does have a few printings available, with the Hobby League Ultra Rares at the top at $15 each. Aside from that, we have super rares, commons, and rares, all of which are around that $8 to $10 range, though obviously super rare first edition copies are going to be quite a bit more. I remember a little while ago, the commons from Champion Pack used to only be a couple of bucks, but even those are approaching the $10 mark. Now technically in GOAT format you do have unlimited extra deck space, so you would just run 3 copies of this card, cause why not? Though to be fair, you probably only need to have 1 or 2 available, you're probably not making 3 in a single game. This is definitely a card that's worth digging out of your old bulk if you happen to have any lying around there, as an important extra deck monster for the format, where all different rarities of this card are worth at least a few bucks. Alright guys, last but not least, let's take a look at Trap Dust Shoot. So I feel like Trap Dust Shoot is a card that has seen more and more play in GOAT format over the last couple of years. primarily in the side deck, though I do see some people mainboarding it as well. The idea here is really simple. If you open with it on that turn 0, you get to flip it during standby phase and gain a ton of information about the cards that your opponent has in their opening hand. It also lets you put back an opponent's monster that could be potentially problematic. So maybe that's an exiled force that's going to pop your set monster, or a Tsukuyomi or an Azura Priest that they've really been abusing. It's a really strong card in the format, especially now that Thunder Dragon has been such a popular option in those chaos decks that keeps hand sizes quite big, though obviously it can be a dead card in those top deck situations or against decks that set their hands and max out on Blade Knight. I believe that this card has been banned in the TCG for about 10 years or so, and it hasn't been reprinted since. I think that this card is really similar to Metamorphosis in terms of the printings that are available, where you have the really expensive Champion Pack Super Rare version that's about $450 right now, and then you have a couple of common old printings, but they're usually damaged, and near mints are anywhere from like $8 to $10 each. With Dust Shoot though, we do also have that dual terminal printing, but at the moment they're definitely inflated on TCG Player, where the cheapest available copies are $100 each. Personally, I really enjoy running this card in the side deck because the information that you gain from it is so important, and it can allow you to dictate and control the pace of the game a lot more easily. Definitely a card that is worth setting aside if you can find some extra copies. Okay guys, that is it for today's episode. I've actually wanted to talk about some GOAT format stuff for a little while, so if you guys want to see some more GOAT related content, let me know in the comment section down below. Of course, later this week we will be back to our regularly scheduled market watches and other sorts of content, and we're bound to see a ton of other movement on the market with Ghosts from the Past coming out in just over a week, so be sure to keep your eyes out for those. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed today's market watch episode, please make sure that you hit that thumbs up button for me and let me know. Also make sure you leave a comment in the comment section below about what other cards are trending on the market or the cards that we talked about today. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get all of the latest and greatest content from both Tombox and myself here on the channel. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.